Well, good morning, everyone. I don't know where you are when you hear this, but hi, good morning. As I record this, it's Sunday, it's the 12th of April. It's raining outside. It's just dawn here up on the ridge. And I wanted to kind of do a quick in-between video, kind of that liminal space. So I've just done some pretty heavy things, when the future won't hold, the collapse of futurity and priced out of personhood. And I realize for some that I'm naming things, these material conditions that are very real. And part of the why behind things is kind of why I'm doing this video, and also to kind of set up what's coming next, because it will feel kind of abrupt, the transition between this, just finished series Priced Out of Personhood and what is coming next. So again, I want to explain myself a wee bit. What April is absolutely my least favorite month for a variety of reasons, but not the least of which is autism awareness and the reductive, just absolutely horrific hellscape that is on social media, where the interiority of autistic life get described to us and sometimes from us. But what is being described is, I'm sure it's a lived experience for whoever is describing it, but it's not the entirety of things. And so from that standpoint, gestalt processors are not represented in the autistic influencer scheme. And so those last two series were kind of a response to that, of seeing a few pieces online on Substack, on Instagram, and my brain is just firing off like, no, that's not right. That's not how it works. And so, as often happens with me, where some people might write an essay and be done with it, my brain is making quarter turn after quarter turn after quarter turn. And I'm standing inside this kind of gemstone and I'm seeing all these different facets. And each one deserves its own piece. Poetry arrives first. And for me, just kind of vocalizing and verbalizing and rambling, somehow, some way, things come out, and I kind of fix it here and there. And then I was like, my mind is just kind of, it's like verbal diarrhea almost. I just get it out. And then I said, well, what the heck did I just do? And that becomes the field notes. And then from that point, so it's whole to part and everything. But I wanted to say these things because I think the people in charge need to know these things, that a great many of us cannot see a future, right? And for a great many of us, we are priced out of a future. So as I'm recording this, my employer and my union are at odds over a contract that expired the end of last school year. So an impasse has been declared. People on both sides are just being silly about things. The bullies have sharpened their knives on both sides. The media has picked sides. And I don't want to dive too deep into it, but I don't like bullies. I never have liked bullies. As somebody who is, dealing with bullies on a daily basis since time was time, I don't like encountering these situations where the sides are so calcified and they ask for opinions. Well, Dr. H, what do you feel about that? Or, why do you feel this way, or whatever? So that's really kind of the segue into the next series of pieces about those WH questions: what, why, and so on. Because I've seen in speech and language, Instagram and Substack, a kind of way of dealing with these questions that, whilst it does see gestalt processing in them, it doesn't capture the interiority. It's more of a scaffold, a structure, right? If you get these types of questions, here's what you might do. And so I wanted to, again, take a quarter turn from that. And so the next series of articles, they kind of put the reader, you, into the weather system as these things arrive, and why the why questions are the absolute worst. They are the absolute worst. Especially from the standpoint of somebody who is gestalt processor and is trying to anchor a response in 5-dimensional space, right? When the person who's asking this question does not really mean that, And so I know I've talked previously about, Jamie, what's your favorite color? And how complex the answer starts to form in my head. And I'm even kind of panicking over just saying it to myself. But that is the hinge that's happening here, because this whole month I've been writing autism awareness posts, but I've not been declaring them as such. I wanted readers to be aware that there is a pathway, a direct, observable, documentable pathway, that the palatable autistics go on to service capital, and the unpalatable ones go on to service capital in a slightly different way. They become the reserve army of labor, and they live a life of precarity. And I can write from that because I have been homeless a few times in my life. I have been without work. I have been without food. I understand, right? And the fact that I have a body that is configured a certain way that can serve capital, I've managed to scratch out a living, a life, and I'm 55 and I have a pension, right? And I'm saying all of these things that I kind of believe happened, and is not through any kind of intentionality or planning or whatever. It's like, oh crap, here I am. And so I wanted to kind of capture that, because I don't think enough people understand what it's like to not see yourself represented, right? And I think, a lot of the market is reflected in these pieces around autism awareness and information and autism acceptance and autism education. And I think I've been fairly good at letting readers know that I'm a sample size of one, right? I'm writing from inside a weather system that is mine, but that weather system interacts with conditions, material conditions. And so from that standpoint, I try to be honest about it. And I find people share my experience. And so that offers me a bit of comfort. But I did not want to spend a great deal of time this morning, again, Sunday, and the strike is 2 days away, so I have to prepare, and then all of the other events in the world and stuff. But I did kind of want to explain what might appear as a very abrupt turn from Collapse of Futurity, Priced Out of Personhood, and now all of a sudden we're talking about, this different kind of language experience. But the reality is there's no disconnect, right? Because every one of us autistic people who are employed are terrified of not being employed. And every one of us autistic people who are not employed are terrified of the process of becoming employed. And part of that, getting above that price threshold where you can actually afford to live, is answering these kinds of questions. Right? What kind of worker are you? What kind of value will you return to the corporation? What can you do for XYZ Corp? So, etc. So we have to do that, and then at the same time we have to acknowledge that, at least here in America, there are thousands of people applying for one job, and that if you're on LinkedIn, the real statistics, the chance, the probability of you getting a job through that medium, you have a better chance of getting into Harvard College than you do getting a job on LinkedIn. Autistic people know this, right? But we still have to try. Right? We're not guaranteed anything in America or the UK. And so we have to go through this gauntlet of these kinds of questions. We have to go through them in therapy. We have to go through them in all sorts of places, and they're just very hostile. And so that's where we're going next. It's still auto theory, it's still autoethnography, but it centers around a couple of points of, how do you tell somebody something if you don't have the words? How do you have a conversation with somebody who seems to think they're asking a very simple question, and yet they don't understand the interiority that goes into the panic and all of this around these so-called simple questions? And I'm not offering relief. I'm offering windows and mirrors, and hopefully a conversation starter around what a better life might look like. And so, with that, I will end. There's no Kathy here. There's no squirrel coming out to say, "All right, Jamie, let's move on." But I have to kind of do that in myself on these times when I'm by myself, feeling untethered but needing to say something. So I'll thank you for your time, and I wish you well.